The Realme X2 Pro is the company's first smartphone that's priced above 20,000 rupees in India. Now, it does offer a lot of features that are typically found in higher priced mid-range flagships, but at a starting price of just 29,999 rupees. Here are some of the reasons why you should buy the Realme X2 Pro and some reasons why you should probably avoid it. Now before we go ahead, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that bell icon so you're the first to be notified whenever we have a new video. Now starting with the build, the Realme X2 Pro has an aluminium body with Gorilla Glass on the front and the back, which makes it very sturdy. This also makes it feel very premium, and the buttons are placed ergonomically, which makes it easy to use. Now second is the headphone jack, and while this may seem like a small thing, we've seen many companies ditch the headphone jack, especially in the mid-range space, so it's nice to see Realme still sticking with it. This means you can continue to use affordable wired headphones with this phone. Next up is the excellent display. The Realme X2 Pro has a 6.5-inch Full HD Plus AMOLED panel, which is sharp, has good viewing angles and good saturation. We found the display to have very good sunlight legibility as well. However, what makes this special is that it can run at 90 Hz instead of the traditional 60 Hz. Now this higher refresh rate offers a more fluid feel when you're scrolling through the menus, Android's UI and even in apps. You also get an optical in-display fingerprint sensor and face unlock, and both of them work very well. Stereo speakers are something we've increasingly seen manufacturers adopt in budget and mid-range phones, and the X2 Pro has them as well. The bottom one does sound a little louder than the one in the earpiece, but you still get a decent stereo effect. The speakers also support Dolby Atmos, and in videos with Dolby Atmos encoded audio, the surround effect is somewhat perceptible. The speakers also get really loud, so alerts are easily audible even in noisy public spaces.
Whether the sound sweeps from the back to all the way in front, arcs overhead, almost anywhere in between.
Coming to performance, the Realme X2 Pro has the Snapdragon 855 Plus SoC with either 8GB of RAM and 128GB of storage, or 12GB of RAM and 256GB of storage. Now the powerful processor in the Realme X2 Pro allows it to handle heavy games and multitasking with ease. We tried heavy titles such as PUBG Mobile and even Call of Duty Mobile, both of which ran just fine with the visuals cranked up. Also, games such as Rayman Adventures can take advantage of that 90 Hz display. The Realme X2 Pro is also one of the few mid-range phones to have the newer UFS 3.0 storage format. The new format improves the read-write speeds, which should make using Android, even copying files to and from the phone, a lot snappier. The Realme X2 Pro has pretty good camera performance for this price. It has a 64 megapixel primary sensor, a more useful 13 megapixel telephoto camera with a 2x optical zoom, an 8 megapixel wide-angle camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensor. Now let's take a look at the camera in a bit more detail. Now in our testing, we found that the primary sensor captured detailed 16 megapixel oversampled photos under natural light. Portrait mode also works very well with good edge detection, and you can also adjust the level of blur before you take the shot. In low light, we also found details to be quite good, colors were punchy, and there was very little visible noise, even though darker regions looked a little hazy at times. However, the phone's nightscape mode does address this problem to an extent. Now, one thing to keep in mind, the nightscape is the most effective when you have a decent amount of light sources around. However, in darker scenes, nightscape did brighten up the photos, but details weren't necessarily better. Now, thanks to the powerful SoC, the Realme X2 Pro can shoot up to 4K 60fps video. Image quality was good in daylight and image stabilization worked decently well too, even at 4K. With the ultra steady mode enabled, the view from the primary camera is cropped heavily and it shoots at 1080p 60fps by default. The stabilization was once again decent but not great, as minor jerkiness was still noticeable. Videos shot from the wide-angle camera had decent details and the footage was once again stabilized. Finally, we come to the battery life. The Realme X2 Pro uses a 4000 mAh battery and we easily got about a day and a half of runtime on a single charge. Now, this would dip a bit when we were heavily testing the camera or playing a lot of games, but otherwise, it comfortably lasted a full day. Now, with the bundle 50-watt Super Whoop charger, we managed to fully charge the battery from zero in about 31 minutes, which is extremely impressive. Okay, so far so good. The Realme X2 Pro is shaping up to be a pretty solid smartphone at this price range. However, here are some of the areas where we feel that the phone could have done better. The first one is that it is a little bulky and heavy, and there's just no getting around this. The X2 Pro is a bit on the thicker side at 8.7mm, and it's also slightly heavy at nearly 200 grams, but the weight is distributed well, so it doesn't really feel too unbalanced. Next is that notch. Phones such as Realme X or even the 6C or the Redmi K20 Pro have spoiled us with the notchless screens. Now, we would have loved to see a pop-up selfie camera on the Realme X2 Pro, especially considering this is Realme's flagship phone, but sadly we still have to live with that tiny notch. Then there's the software. The Realme X2 Pro ships with ColorOS 6.1, which is based on Android 9, and our unit also had the November security patch pre-installed. Now, the software is mostly fine, but it does lack the polish of some other custom skins such as Oxygen OS, which we're quite used to in this price segment. Now, you also get a bunch of preloaded apps with ColorOS 6.1, and some of the default ones do tend to spam you with unwanted notifications. Now, while ColorOS might not be as lean as OnePlus's Oxygen OS or might not suit everyone's taste, the next version, which is ColorOS 7, promises to be closer to stock Android, so that's definitely something to watch out for. Next is that you cannot expand the storage. Now, the Realme X2 Pro lacks expandable storage, which can be a bother for some people. Now, 120GB of storage should be enough for most, so it's not a huge deal breaker, but it is something to keep in mind, especially if you're someone who loves carrying around their entire movie and music library. Now, while the Realme X2 Pro did run cool in general, while playing games or using the camera extensively, we did notice that the sides and the back of the phone got quite hot. Now, this was very evident on a sunny day outdoors. However, even in an air-conditioned room indoors, we did notice this heating issue. While the cameras do a decent job in general, they do struggle a bit when it comes to low-light videos. We found that the Realme X2 Pro needs quite a bit of improvement in this area. Whether it is 1080p or 4K, there was lots of noise and artifacting in dark areas. I also noticed a bit of unnatural artifacting around light sources, and the electronic stabilization caused some very evident shimmer when you walked around. Now, sticking with the cameras, we didn't find the 16-megapixel selfie camera to be particularly impressive either. Even under good light, exposure was a bit of a hit or miss, and when shooting against the light, HDR wasn't handled too effectively. In portrait mode, bright areas were almost always blown out and edge detection was not great. In low light, details were a little mushy, but the new nightscape mode helped fix the color accuracy and light metering a bit in some scenes. The screen flash is quite powerful, but the image quality was once again quite average. The Realme X2 Pro is a great offering at 29,999 rupees. You essentially get most of the features of the OnePlus 7T, barring the lean software, but at a much more affordable price. In fact, even the higher-end version, which costs 33,999 rupees for 12GB of RAM and 256GB of storage, still offers decent value as it's still better priced than the cheapest OnePlus 7T. We hope you found this video useful and we're able to decide if the Realme X2 Pro is for you or not. Let us know what you think is the best value smartphone at around 30,000 rupees in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, for everything tech, log on to gadgets360.com.